Hello and welcome to the Digital Mythology Podcast, where myth meets modern mastery. I'm your host, Declan Goodman. Today I'm very excited to talk to my guest, Myles Thies. He's the CIO of Alulu, a learning company out of County Cork. They specialise in learning incentivisation and rewards. Today we're going to be talking about how do you start your education and your lifelong learning journey? How do you make sure you have the right guides in place? How do you make sure you stay motivated as you go through it? And how do you set micro rewards along the way so that your overall learning experience is positive and sustainable? We're going to, of course, bring in mythology. We're going to talk about Cú Chulainn, going over to Scáthach from Irish mythology. We're going to talk about Ubuntu philosophy out of South Africa, about the village or the community helping you learn. And lastly, we're going to talk about Athena, the Greek goddess of wisdom. We're going to talk a little bit about how AI, plenty of knowledge, but not much wisdom. And really, this is about how do you, on your own learning journey, become the hero of your own learning journey when it comes to maintaining motivation, seeking help from those around you, and having a guide to take you there. I can't wait to share this episode with you. Myles, welcome to the Digital Mythology Podcast. Delighted to have you here today.
Thank you, Declan. It's lucky to be on the show. Thank you.
So today, for the audience, we're going to be talking about all things to do with learning and incentivization and rewards around learning. And, you know, if you think about the story of learning, there's a lot to be said for everybody gets excited when they start learning and they sign up to a course and they get excited. And then after a while, life gets in the way or things come about and they end up, maybe, let's just say motivation dies off a little bit. And that's a classic story in ancient mythology as well. It's always about finding the right supports around you so that as you start on a big endeavor, and you know, self-learning, educating yourself is a story of being the hero of your own journey. It's about making the decision, you've invested in the course, you've invested in what you're going to be doing, or lifelong learning, and yet sometimes we forget that there's help. And if we don't look for that help early, then there's a risk that we become demotivated or things get in the way, obstacles present themselves, and we don't fulfill that purpose. So today, Myles, we're going to be talking about how you're a co-founder of a company called Alulu, based out of lovely part of Ireland, Cork.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
And you know what? What better country to build a learning incentivization rewards program out of than Ireland?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's many incentives to starting business in Ireland. I have family connections here. But the incentivization environment and the support for new business has been absolutely fantastic. But there's also commonalities in the types of challenges that we're seeing. So we see this as an opportunity to address the same types of challenges here. And this is a fantastic springboard essentially to the rest of the world in order to try and help address the same types of challenges with the solution that potentially can help them with.
Yeah, that's lovely, isn't it? I think now with AI, now with everybody, like, you know, they can download Claude. They can learn about something in 3 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever. And we're going to talk a bit about that because AI presents access to plenty of knowledge, but not necessarily wisdom, right? So we're going to talk about 3 main themes today. The first one is going to be about, to go on a learning journey, we need a guide. And recommendation is, it's all the way through mythology, through history, is that the great heroes or the great successful ones used to earlier on, before they started on their journey of discovery and skills and building, is they were very fortunate enough to have strong guides. So we'll be talking about Cú Chulainn, the great Irish mythical hero, and he had a lot of help from Scáthach over in Scotland. We might just start with that. So in the reason I love using mythology as a way to better understand tech is that mythology, it's not just about fairy tales. It's about the stories behind human transformation. And digital and tech today is transformative. People are able to undergo massive changes in their quality of life, and they're even able to learn more and have lots of new experiences with tech. But tech is there, fine. But what matters more is how do they use that tech in their own story? And how do they get the best outcome for themselves? How can they be the hero in their own story? So when we talk about Cú Chulainn, so he was a great hero, but often what's overlooked in myth is that he didn't become a hero on his own. He spent some time over in Scotland with the Scáthach. She was a great warrior and her school was elite. And she gave him the skills and the foundations and taught him resilience and perseverance, so that when he returned to Ireland, he used that as a guide to become the hero he became. In terms of modern day tech today, can you tell us a bit in terms of Alulu's view on that, in terms of how that relates to your incentivization and rewards program?
Well, first of all, I have to tell you, I absolutely love the story of Cú Chulainn and Scáthach. It really resonated with me, and I think it has real resonance for a lot of people today because of, kind of that trial aspect of having to proceed. Cú Chulainn had a lot of capability, as we know. He had real potential, but he needed an educator in Scáthach in order to be able to realize that. And he had to go through significant trials in order to be able to succeed in that perspective. So he had an educator, but some of that came down to himself as well. He had to have that self-realization. In order to be successful, he needed to adopt the right types of behaviors, and he was in the right environment that encouraged that to happen as well, which is what Scáthach created for him. So essentially, we're trying to take those principles into Alulu. What we see today with the problem with technology is that, yes, it creates a lot of capability. We've kind of solved the accessibility problem, but as you pointed out, where's the wisdom aspect to that? So a lot of us are, we're on these individual learning journeys, and oftentimes, we still need to adopt the right types of agency in ourselves, the right types of behaviors and self-determination in order to be successful long-term. And in daily life, there's a lot of challenges that represent itself. Life just gets in the way, and we have to overcome those. Sometimes those can be insurmountable. Only through a lot of self-motivation do we actually get through those. And obviously, technology can't control all those aspects. So essentially, Alulu's there to create the right incentivization and encourage the right behavioral habits to form sustainably so that anybody involved in learning can essentially be successful. And we do that by combining, obviously, innovative technology, things like AI, nudges as well. So people are getting a lot more personalized understanding of their own capabilities and how much time they need to invest. But we pair that with real-world rewards as well. So there's a significant extrinsic incentive to be, continue being committed to your learning, and ultimately that should lead to you being successful long-term with the learning undertaking that you've got.
Wow. So it's sort of like Alulu in the modern world is like the Scáthach for Cú Chulainn.
Absolutely. That's a great analogy. Absolutely.
Yeah. So Alulu is that platform, that service where when you are on your own heroic journey to become more learned and increase your skills, you don't have to anymore get on the boat and go over to Scotland to meet Scáthach.
Yeah.
Not needed.
No,
although it would be fun. Maybe you should offer that to some of your clients. But you can just, Alulu offers that service. And it's quite a lovely aspect as well, because I'm a big fan of history and mythology and books in general. It kind of reminds me of the Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey, which is a mythological framework that Joseph Campbell developed. And again, it's you can be the hero, but you definitely need to lean on guides. And so now let's talk about the bit in the middle. So there's this middle part where so you've got your guide, you got your Alulu, you got your Scáthach. Now you're coming back home, you're going to develop out your learning experience and you're going on your roadmap, on your journey, and the difficult middle presents itself. Tell us a bit about that.
So, we know that, motivation and willpower on their own isn't necessarily enough in order to be successful at any specific goal. It doesn't just have to be, learning. It could be anything you've chosen to do. So apart from having the right conditions in place, we have to recognize that, willpower it's almost like a muscle. It's not something that some people have more of and others have less of. Even throughout a single day, people recognize that they have the willpower to achieve certain things in a day, but towards the end of the day, you're running low on energy. Suddenly you feel less like you want to do the things which are positive for you, but you don't ultimately get to. So ultimately, individuals have to make the right decisions for themselves. And again, through the course of a longer learning process or where you don't necessarily understand the ultimate goals for, having to do something. We take corporate learning, for instance, a lot of compliance training, for instance. It's critically important to the way that people have this information and the way that they do their work. But the sort of personal goal for them, it isn't really there. So their willpower is lacking. So essentially, that's what we're trying to achieve with a tool like Alulu, is we want individuals to reflect on what the benefits are for themselves by undertaking this. And pairing that with rewards, we're not just saying to individuals, well, you're just going to do this for the benefit of the business you're working for and some knowledge. There's actually a tangible benefit for you actually completing this as well. And because we make those real rewards as well, it's something that somebody can go and recognize almost immediately as well. And I mean, it's an interesting insight from neurosciences, that our brains don't really recognize the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic rewards, but we do like the kind of little dopamine hit that comes from us being able to recognize that. So that's something else we also leverage in the way that we present the particular product as well.
I'm just thinking of dopamine. Dopamine hit. I'm thinking of doom scrolling and stuff like that. But I do think, it's interesting you mentioned the rewards piece. So do you want to just tell us a little bit about? I loved hearing about the origin behind the name of Alulu.
Yeah, so really, really cool story is the name Alulu comes from the name of a brewer in ancient Sumeria. And it's the record of one of the first interactions of daily life using the very first basic forms of communication written into a clay tablet. And essentially, Alulu was a brewer and the receipt of some beer by a grain merchant from Alulu of the best beer, which they both shared as well, really resonated with us because obviously it says a lot about commitment, about recognition for a job well done, and about it being shared with individuals as well. Also it involves beer, which for my co-founders and I really resonated well because who doesn't like a great beer,
especially when it comes to learning as
absolutely.
Well. Nothing like a nice bit of alcohol, especially Irish beer. Let's just throw in some Guinness there. Lovely story. So there's also something else, another theme we were discussing when we're trying to highlight, how philosophy and mythology's always been through. Like, the tech may be new, what Alulu's doing, but the need is ancient, right? We've had the lovely philosophy of the Ubuntu out of Africa. So the Ubuntu, it's the saying, it means I am because we are. And it has that community feel for you to be as successful as you want to be, you don't have to do it alone. You should lean in. And lean into the community, lean into the frameworks available to you. And I think that comes through in Alulu's offering as well, isn't it? It's very much about don't think you have to go on the hero's journey of your own education alone. And there's a lot of support. And also that helps with that getting stuck in the middle piece, right? So, and it's really interesting because that philosophy is ingrained pretty much through lots of the mythology and history across Africa, but it's obviously applicable in any part of the world. There's the old saying, you need a village to raise a child. It's sort of like that. It's like, if you want to excel at self-serving your education or enhancing your skills and you go on your journey, not just looking in the mirror and feeling you're on your own doing this. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I mean, Ubuntu is a fantastic, concept within society that's used widely in South Africa, and I think largely it stems from the fact that a big part of it is the storytelling aspect, which is a nice commonality with Ireland as well. It's a significant part of cultural development, storytelling. There's a lot of obviously metaphors for life and society within those. So it's a fantastic basis from which to start working. And the philosophy that we take that for Alulu is that there's recognition in the work that's being done. So it's something that can be shared with the community. And as we know, learning is a very social thing. And even individuals that, had high levels of potential, in order to reach that potential, oftentimes, they needed that mentor in society. And that often comes from the community. And it can be an individual, it can be a family member, it can be the community as a whole. And that comes from, as we talked about reflection earlier as well, but that consistent interaction with the community as well, and that storytelling aspect that allows individuals to kind of develop that understanding themselves. And obviously it all starts with that storytelling aspect.
I shared a post recently on LinkedIn about the tribe, finding your tribe. And it is a big part of it, like some of even my own journey, but, the story behind some people who've gone through a lot of difficulty, challenges, but they got through to the end. It's very much they couldn't have done it on their own. They've leaned in on the community available to them. It brings us into that space where it's, the community now is accessible to us. It's online, it's social media out there, and there's you're kind of talking about an ecosystem, aren't you? So like Alulu doesn't just provide the incentivization and the rewards, but it brings an ecosystem. It brings a village, right? Brings a community.
Yeah. Yeah, because a lot of individuals are using it collectively, So, I mean, you might be using it on your own, but I think it's giving you an important piece of recognition, which you can then share with others, and it also has that, it's very relatable because you're earning a reward that you can actually go and use, and I mean, where that's potentially helpful is that, for instance, there's a real cost of living crisis, for instance.
Yeah.
So, you can actually go and just by conducting what you needed to do, you can go and earn a reward, which ultimately has a benefit for not just you as an individual, but potentially your family, or you can use that reward to reward others because we offer the ability to, give that reward to charities and exactly and pay it forward. But which is so important is that it gives you the opportunity to talk about how you earn that reward, which in turn helps your own understanding about the learning journey that you're currently going on. Because then it comes back to that social aspect as well. It's not just you on this journey. The more you communicate that with others, the more that learning that you've undertaken is going to, establish itself and in what you have done, and also how you can potentially apply that in your work and your life.
Fantastic. It's sort of in a way, because we know busy world, cost of living, lots of distractions. Sometimes it's often good if your peers are able to remind you how well you're doing, right? And then you work hard, you achieve something, and then you can pass it on to someone else to reward the overall, I guess, journey of learning, right? It's that kind of thing. It's in some ways, I feel you're offering the ability to reconnect with the joy of learning in a way.
Absolutely.
Because, it really is a joyful thing to learn. And that's why, personally, I read too many books. But every time you read a book, even if you read the same book, you're a different person reading it to the last time you read it. There's always a way to get a new message out of that wisdom that's in there. And that brings us to the last theme we were going to bring in today, which resonates with the hero of your own journey to lifelong learning and to, bring. So you've got on the boat and you've gone to Scáthach and you got the guide. So now you have also in the Ubuntu tradition, you have your community. But lastly, I couldn't resist reaching into Greek mythology and talk about Athena. She was the goddess of knowledge and wisdom. The reason I chose that, it was a great discussion we had about it, was that with AI today and all that's happening and all of the, we know the term AI slop and stuff coming out, knowledge has become cheap and accessible, right? You want to know about something, you can just type it into a prompt and AI will tell you, subject to some hallucination, bias, etc. It'll tell you. But we know that knowledge isn't where the value is. Wisdom is where the value is. And it's bringing the lived experience to that. That's why when we think about Athena, she wasn't just known for the oracle of knowledge, but she recommended, she used to give advice to the councils in the mythology about not just consider the knowledge, but the context of what you're doing. Here's the wisdom around whether it'll really work or not. It's more like AI is there to tell us what we should do, potentially, but the tools like Alulu and the learning experience are there to help us figure out what really matters. And this is the bit where knowledge versus wisdom. I wanted to just express a bit of that in the context of Alulu. Do you want to expand a little bit on that?
Yeah, well, I think, we were talking earlier before the podcast, and, the fact that wisdom is so critically important in a world where we're awash with knowledge. As we also said, we solved the access issue, but now how do we create the right levels of thinking and reflection about what knowledge is, and also the ability to sift through what knowledge is relevant and what isn't. We have so much data at our fingertips, but we don't necessarily always know how to understand that or apply it. So I think an enhanced aspect that we're looking to try and improve with Alulu, but more just generally, I think, is we want individuals to really kind of reflect on what it is they're doing, how they're growing as an individual, and their understanding is improving as a result of reflecting more on their path through their learning. and how they can actually apply what they know as well. And I think doing that, the understanding begets more understanding, and we essentially grow as individuals. So I think ultimately it's just become such a positive process because we're not just going through a process of learning for the sake of it. It's actually helping us develop as individuals. And I think, we often think that, we're actually almost obligated to try and understand more about our world every single day. That old, passe, I need to learn something every day. But I think that really, really is true for every individual because it obviously brings a richness, not just to your own life, but also to the work that you do, the interactions that you have, the communities that we live in. And if we can bring some of that thinking to Alulu and the commitment to creating the conditions so that individuals undertake that on a daily basis, I think we'll feel like we've achieved something.
You mentioned, you were talking there about small steps beget bigger steps, as in you do a bit, reward kicks in, you do more. It's kind of like habits, isn't it? It's about, is that something Alulu have built into your offering? Is that kind of incentivize small habit, the habit of doing a small bit, a little bit,
Absolutely.
And then it leads to something bigger?
Yeah. So a great book that I would recommend everybody reads is How Habits Form by Charles Duhigg. And, he essentially started recognizing that if you develop things which are called keystone habits, they oftentimes help spill over into other parts of your life. So, individuals, he was initially trying to convey that it's easy to, once you create the habits, you recognize what the habits are, you can potentially break bad habits, but at the same time, you can develop positive actions around good habits as well. And if you've got those in place, these spill over into other parts of your life as well. So you will start making better choices potentially about your health, about your relationships, about your attitudes to, your work or other important decisions you need to make. And I think the important part there is that you're doing this on a consistent basis. So again, you're reflecting about the choices you're making, which essentially lead to kind of positives across, your entire existence, and everything benefits from there. It takes a bit of commitment, obviously, and you do need to go through the process of recognizing what those are in order to try and improve them. But yeah, keystone habits is a key part of the way that certainly how Alulu works. And anybody who sticks with it ultimately will actually start being successful even in spite of themselves, which ultimately we hope becomes the ultimate reward, And yes, the rewards are a significant motivator initially, but ultimately, you'll be successful because of your own actions. And the rewards are a fantastic addition to what you're doing.
That's lovely. Yeah, it's kind of like we had this term, progress is better than perfection, right? So the pursuit of perfection takes up exponentially way more time for diminishing returns. So it's like your proposition is that rather than trying to commit 3 hours tomorrow evening to go through this module, I've done plenty of online stuff myself. It's break it up into smaller parts. Perhaps it does lean a little bit into the neuroscience behind it, doesn't it, as well? So you were talking about the neuroscience of learning before we came on here. Do you want to just share with our guests a bit about how your Alulu ecosystem is actually empowering the use of our brains?
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, there's no ways that any one system can account for all the different challenges that individuals might have, in their life. And let's just say in the day of any particular worker that needs to undertake some training or learning. So again, it's all about getting the individuals to start adopting the agency for themselves, and again, creating the conditions that Alulu precipitates so that they essentially are making the right choices for themselves. And then making recommendations because it's consistently giving feedback on progress. So, that all leads to them, again, reflecting on what behaviors I've adopted and how those are actually leading to me to make progress. I think we alluded to it earlier in the kind of being in the middle somewhere. Oftentimes it's difficult to see, the end is so far away, but, I don't feel like I'm actually making progress. But again, the opportunity to be able to reflect on that and actually make changes towards that goal and then get, positive feedback on that process, it's immensely useful.
It's brilliant. It's a clever use of the human enterprise, which is we know that as we learn, we get a dopamine hit out of it because we've enhanced some part of our mindset. We feel we've delivered something. And then what you do is grab that, harness it, don't let it die off, and reissue it again. Do you want to talk just a little bit about, let's say somebody who's no prior knowledge of Alulu, doesn't really, and let's just say, think of a sample case study, maybe somebody who wants to go back and learn what I'm actually studying mythology at the moment, of all things. So tech is my industry, but I'm going to be taking on different mythologies so that I could work it more into my work. And I'm going online and I'm looking at courses, and there's tons of courses. And of course, AI can give me a course. Still feels like a little bit of a lonely journey for me because I'm out there. What's good, what's not good. And of course, AI can help me, but it's a machine. It's not the lived experience. Like, how would you see somebody maybe looking to further educate themselves or to build up skills? What would be the typical, positive experience they'd have with Alulu, and what would it look like?
Okay, so because Alulu integrates with learning management systems, learning experience systems, it's reading consistent learning signals that any individual is putting into the system as a result of their interaction with their learning content. And when you get to points where there's potentially difficult assessments or there's large amounts of activity that you need to complete, because you're getting consistent feedback from the system, you're getting updates on your progress. So again, it helps you make decisions about, how much cognitive effort do I apply here? How much time do I have to adjust in my own schedule on a daily basis in order to be successful? And we have the rewards in place to say, right, well, you've achieved so much, but if you did a little bit more, you'd actually achieve a greater tier. And on this tier, we have, more enticing rewards. And so those are there as long as you consistently maintain that level of motivation and performance. And, we try and understand who the learner is as well. So, it's not difficult to achieve, but it also requires the individual to start adopting even the basic amounts of effort. And again, thinking about, their particular schedule on a daily basis, for instance, how much effort they have to put into doing something in order to be successful. And effectively, the system is consistently tracking them across all those different learning signals. And we combine that information in order to give them more information about their own profile, their own progress. And essentially, they then have choice. And that's another significant aspect of Alulu. We have, about 4,000 different rewards available to individuals. We have the ability to service rewards for customers in about 35 different countries. And in fact, that list is even growing now. So there is something within that reward availability that will resonate with individuals. And again, we spoke about, cost of living. And again, so that's really about understanding who the individuals are, what it is they're learning, what the learning path is, and how much they need to do. And then we adjust that accordingly so that it really becomes a lot more personalized to them. So that there's things that actually resonate and are, things that will actually essentially help provide more of an incentive for them to do the things that they need to do in order to be successful on a sustainable basis. So again, it's not just about, completing this training today. It's about being able to have the right mindset from one day to the next. And again, it comes back to those habits as well. So everybody's adjusting their habits on a personal basis of their own will in order to be successful. So again, it's about, the choice aspect then, which comes into it.
It's lovely, though. It's kind of like you're a co-creator, a co-author in a person's learning journey.
Right? I haven't heard of that analogy, but it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that because you're describing all the things that are making me feel that it's about me. It's about my journey. It's not about what the college wants or the certificate says I should do or the jobs I'm going to get afterwards. It's about continuous reminder, I guess, and incentivization to say, look, learning today is pretty tough. I mean, it's hard to learn almost anything today with so many distractions and work and cost of living and all sorts of things going on geopolitically and how are we supposed to. So you're kind of saying, look, we're going to co-author your own journey, your own story, and we're going to help you identify typical pitfalls that could slow you down, and we're going to keep an eye on those based on your own personalized experience, right? So for me, like, for example, this might be a bit outside the scope of it, but for me, I know there's a certain time of the evening or the day that I just lock in and flow, whereas mornings aren't terribly good for me. But that's a really minor example. But even that as a knowledge base, knowing that about somebody could be quite valuable, right? Because it gives them a personalized experience. And I also like the fact that, as we discussed Alulu, you know, there's something about that when you speak about it and talk about it, it's not just about the learning experience. It's more about, you know, because that can change as people's lives change, right? You know, the learning experience this year, where before you have your new baby, is different to next year when the new baby's there.
Yeah.
And it's like every journey, and you're able to, through your, you know, knowledge of the learning story behind learning, you're able to help identify in advance that these things are coming up, but also you're able to spot, I guess, waning off, and you're able to really, so it's quite a rich experience, right? It's like you're taking all the experience of other lived experiences of learning and you're bundling it into an overall ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, I think in some respects, you know, I think we've all experienced that, where, you know, that when we come to some realization about something, or we've learned something, some new piece of knowledge, that for some people it's a sense of fulfillment. For others, it's the joy of learning and knowing. I personally would love everybody to have that on a daily basis. You know, I love the process of learning. I love learning about new things all the time. My interests are, you know, apart from mythology, are also varied and wide. And I try and use as many resources as possible. But I think we also recognize that, you know, as you were mentioning, it's difficult. We don't always get the opportunities to do that. For some people, there might be some access challenges. So there are some not hopefully insurmountable challenges put in front of people to get to the point where they can start learning. And essentially, I think that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create the conditions that help individuals make the right choices in order to get to the point where what they're learning is really becoming intrinsically valuable to them. You know, we recognize that a reward in itself is an extrinsic factor that helps them, but that itself encourages people to start adopting the right behaviors. And we hope, I think, through the adoption of things like Alulu, that people recognize that there's so much to be gained by adopting these behaviors that ultimately lead to becoming more of an informed individual. And, you know, maybe it is learning about your GDPR policy for your business. But I think once we understand the rationale behind why that's important, that becomes so much more important to the way that we do our work. You know, or even things like health and safety. We do these things every single year, and oftentimes we don't really question why we're doing them. But, you know, at the point of application of that knowledge, only at that point do we realize this is why people were asking me to do this training. And then it becomes really valuable. So if we can create the conditions where people are seeing the value in the information before the point of application, I think that really helps any business, for instance, or any organization where this type of training is important. But that said, I think just knowing something is also it's such a joyous opportunity. Certainly it is for me. So I would, you know, I'd like to hope that that's implied when people see that when they use Alulu, and hopefully it develops if they don't have that.
Well, I'm sure they will. I mean, the energy and passion right here, you're expressing it. It's remarkable. It's brilliant. It's like the personification of what it means to empower people with education, right? It's good you mentioned as well. It just reminded me of the power of why, right? So with a world full of all of this knowledge, we kind of come back to that Athena about the wisdom. So there's plenty of knowledge. You could learn lots of things indefinitely. You might even learn some stuff on TikTok, who knows? Exactly. But it's the wisdom. What is important for you to learn, and why is that important to you? And so before you even set off on your learning journey, you have asked the hard questions up front, and you kind of have a more sustainable strategy, really, haven't you, to achieving the ultimate reward. Wonderful. We're going to be wrapping up soon. Myles, tell me about what would be the key takeaways you would want to express to our listeners?
I think, apart from everything we said, I think, having that real thirst for knowledge, that's really, really important. Something I think, as we said earlier, is not everybody has, the will or the willpower, to undertake new learning. I think really it's about, asking people to kind of reflect a little bit about, as you said, what the real reasons why we're doing the things we're doing. If we have to undertake learning, what is the purpose of that? And potentially how can we, take that and apply it in the work and in our life in general? And I think any opportunity that comes up where we can take on board new knowledge and reflect on that, and which ultimately has long-term benefits for us, I think that can only actually be helpful for us. So I think, again, that's a guiding principle for us at Alulu, is if we can encourage enough individuals to start adopting the right types of behaviors, we know that those individuals will be successful, and ultimately, that's a reward for us, because we essentially can change the outlook for many individuals, and maybe certainly for the long term, but obviously in a more positive way.
Wonderful. To me, it ties in so well with mythology. So you have Cú Chulainn, the hero, and learning is all about your own hero's journey. And Cú Chulainn needed a guide. He went off to Scotland to Scáthach. This is what Alulu offers. It offers a guide to anybody wanting to go and become their own hero of their own learning experience. And then we have Ubuntu, which is the I am because we are. So it's bringing the mythology is village raises a kid, like a community empowers learning. And Alulu's offering that ecosystem. Plus, it has the rewards and the recognition piece. And then lastly was the Athena from Greek mythology about the differentiation between knowledge and wisdom. I think with AI upon us, everybody's getting overwhelmed with knowledge. There's just information everywhere. And the real opportunity is asking yourself, well, what matters? And then how do I pull all this knowledge together and apply it to a lived experience, which is the wisdom piece, which is what your services bring as well, is that lived experience of what works, what's really going to matter to the person's individual learning journey, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's, and again, we're living in this AI world where we're awash with knowledge, but we still have to adopt a attitude of lifelong learning. The jury's still out on exactly how AI is going to develop and the effect it's going to have on the marketplace and the security of our jobs. And I think the imperative is on every individual to take the ownership of the learning that they undertake in order to be more successful, be able to contribute more, to be able to offer more skills. Even if it's just in the context of AI and how to use AI to be more successful at what you do. I think, absolutely that. We have to try every single day to learn something new and better ourselves. And if we need a little bit more motivation to do it, well, we're hoping that we'll be able to be the tool that helps you do that.
Myles Thies, co-founder of Alulu, thank you so much for sharing that passion and that storytelling around what
Declan.
Alulu do. I just love it. I think I'm absolutely certain our listeners will have enjoyed it. And what I guess I'd end on the note is to say, look, learning is a journey, and you don't have to do it alone. And every now and then there's a middle struggle you get through. There is help out there. And lastly, learning is your own hero's journey. Thank you, Myles.
Thanks, Declan.
Thanks for listening to the Digital Mythology Podcast, where myth meets modern mastery. If you like how I use mythology and storytelling to demystify tech, then please follow me on LinkedIn at Declan Goodman, on YouTube at Declan Goodman Stories, or as Digital Mythology on Spotify and Apple. Until next time.